It has a bunch of probiotics. Like this has 1 billion orgasm. I'm so stupid. 1 billion organisms. Oh my god, I haven't had a setup in so long. Hi friends, my name is Free Plant. Most of these were free. Plant tour coming soon. There's a whole cabinet here. This is gonna be the new setup. What do y'all think? Wait, go that way please. This is gonna be the new setup. I hope y'all like it. Obviously, there's a blank wall behind me. Frederic with a blank wall. No, this will be covered with posters eventually. But I hope y'all like it. This chair cost me money, but it is cute. Isn't it cute? I'm just excited to film my own setup. I'll shut up. Either way, a few months ago, I made a video titled The Problem with the Bisexuality Spectrum. Multi-sexuality, if you will. That's more accurate, I would say. And somehow, I did not get dragged on Twitter. I did not get canceled on Reddit. I don't know how I'm still existing on the internet, but first of all, thank you all for understanding my point of view. That's part of a series called The Problem with Blank. And if you haven't watched that, I suggest you do just because you get more context, because today, I'm going to be offending everyone. We're all subject to my wrath, okay? I'm not holding back. And I'm also gonna put on some makeup because I gotta go out at midnight after this. So let's get started, shall we?
I'm gonna show you guys my everyday skincare routine.
If you don't know this series, basically I do my makeup and we talk about something that's on my mind. I was debating bringing up sources and I just thought that is such a turnoff for me nowadays. Like I will watch a video essay sometimes, but I feel like it's a little bit, not pretentious, but like kind of I'm right because here's a source from a scholarly article. Whereas these ideas of sexuality and gender, they're all very nuanced. Don't you just love using that word? Half of us don't even know what that actually means, but it sounds fancy. But the point is, these ideas I'm going to talk about, they're all abstract. So for you to bring up a source about it, in some cases it's understandable where you're talking about history or you talk about like the Bisexual Manifesto. But when it's just about how words and labels work in a society, it's all an abstract idea, so I don't see the point to use a video essay format. Bring up sources from XYZ person. I'd rather just talk to you like a human being and just give you my opinions because you came on this channel for my opinion. So if you get offended, you have every right. Trust me, that's fine. But I don't know what you expect when you click on this guy's videos. It's gonna be opinionated and not just fact spilling. So the reason why I wanted to bring up this conversation was just because I have seen it in my comment section. I see it from audiences on TikTok nowadays, especially with just Gen Z and the generation after that. I think there's one. I don't want to be reminded about it. My big question to everyone is, do you actually know your sexuality?
No! Not
Let's just talk about me, okay? I used to think I was bi back in 8th grade because I was like, there's no way I'm gay. None of that gay shit. You know, I was very that person, insecure of myself. And usually when you're insecure, you lash out on the things that you're insecure about. Actually, confident people don't do that. But then eventually I went back to bisexual because I got a better understanding of what that meant. It wasn't just two genders. Yes, some people still believe that. Grow up. I don't know why you watch me then. But I thought to myself, well, I am attracted to non-binary people and people who don't just identify as male. So I was like, sure, let's go with bi. And that was like middle of college. And then eventually I was like, you know what, I'm just pan. I don't want to think. I know I can be attracted to anyone. Let's just say it at that. Okay, let's make it easier for people, for myself. And now, today, I just say I'm queer, I'm something, okay? I'm just queer.
All these queers.
Whenever you hear an old man say that, that's me they're talking about. And my gender, well, if you watched my video about my gender, I just said, question mark? Let it happen, you know? Because personally, I believe, notice the emphasis there, trying to be careful with my words, I believe that all of this stuff is fluid, it's a spectrum. The whole point of it is just a way of expressing yourself and expressing your love towards someone else or your attraction towards someone else. And it all has to do with you and your body. It's never about someone else. So why do you give a shit about someone else's sexuality and gender? And I'm saying that to everyone. All of y'all are under this boat because a lot of us attack too many people about this stuff. It's a bunch of infighting, you know, within our own community because it doesn't feel like a community at all times anymore. So that's where I am today. Now let's think about what it was back then. And I say this as in like anyone just older than me, literally just anyone who has been older than me, you know, someone who has lived through the Pride protests and pushing for queer rights and activism during the beginning of it in the heart of the city, New York City, also LA, specifically in the US I'm talking about. Back then, I feel like a lot of us today, we forget that they were doing that to survive. People who were queer were either closeted for the most part because of survival and, you know, not trying to get hate crimed and die, because a lot of people died. But it was mainly for survival's sake because they didn't have as many freedoms as we do today. They weren't as respected as we are today. Not that we're all respected, mind you, but more than before. I didn't live during that time, so I can't speak for all of them, but based on what I've heard from my older audience, I've read your comments. Thank you for commenting. It's glad to know that y'all can tolerate me. A lot of people say that, you know, this talk about pronoun usage and all the sexualities besides LGBT, because those are the ones that people most focus on, doesn't mean that makes it right. It wasn't really talked about back then. Like, oh, you want to talk about the third gender? You want to talk about other pronouns, they, them, back then? Good luck, is what they would say. For the most part, the attitudes of the generations before us were just more conservative in general. I mean, you can look at it in terms of Google search histories and trends. That stuff doesn't come up until just recent years in the past decade. Activism back then was trying to be recognized for the fact that the AIDS epidemic was going on, and it was being misconstrued about only gay people. Oh, if you touch a gay person, you'll die. If you're next to a gay person, you're gonna die. Stay away from them. That was the narrative back then. Today, people try to say we're too sensitive. They like to say this generation is so sensitive, they don't understand what it was like back then. That's true, because we are more sensitive, and that's not a bad thing. And we also don't know as much about the history back then because that isn't taught in schools. It may be taught more nowadays, you know, there's some states that are pushing for that, but if you want to talk about like a Republican state, sorry to whoever lives in this state, but like, let's say Iowa, Kansas, I don't think those states are the ones trying to push for queer education in high school. Do you know what I mean? So yes, a lot of kids today will be misinformed about it. They won't understand what it was like back then. They have no concept of the fact that the idea of pronouns was barely talked about back then. Who gave a shit, you know? They barely respected queer people at all. It's sort of similar to when you're like trying to come out to a conservative parent and you're like, I just came out to them as bi. I don't even want to get to the conversation about non-binary yet. They're still trying to wrap their head around bi at first. It's a similar analogy, in my opinion, about the attitude of people back then. So what's the problem with it, Frederic? Why is your title of this video The Problem with Sexuality and Labels? And the short answer is they're limiting. Sexuality, for me, can be broken down into three general groups. You know, it's your romantic attraction, it's your physical attraction to someone, or how physically attracted you are to someone, I should say, and your, let's just say, emotional attraction. What does it even mean to say, I like men, you know? And there's a lot of different people who have opinions about this, but like for me, let's say when I used to call myself gay, I like men, I like boys. Okay, but what happens if I find someone who's non-binary or just uses she, her pronouns and I still am attracted to them? That's up to you to figure out, because a definition will never be able to fully describe the, I don't want to say the word again, the nuances of sexuality. They're all abstract feelings that we have in our brain. It's not something you can just put on paper and be like, yes, I can read this and I can fully assure you this is my sexuality. This is why scientists always have a hard time talking about it. It's just love itself is hard to describe, which is what I find beautiful about it, but it's also kind of inconvenient. I think most people should understand that sexuality and your level of attraction to someone, for the most part, is just like, I'm attracted to someone who's masculine leaning. That's how I define myself, I would say. But they can also be feminine, so I don't know. Do they need to have a dick down there? No. I don't want to be someone who just limits someone's trans identity. Like that, I don't think that should happen. Yes, it does happen. Someone's like, well, what if I like a trans man? Does that make me still gay? Shut up. What is wrong with you? Obviously, that's a bigger conversation. I suggest watching videos from trans people about that. But in short, you wouldn't know this person if they're passing as a male until they tell you they're trans, because guess what? That is their identity, their business, not yours. And this even goes for those conservative straight guys who, like, you know those stupid videos on TikTok where they get tricked into liking a woman, you know, when they do that? Basically, they like go on this blind date and the conservative college dude sees this woman in front of him and he's like, oh my god, you're so pretty. And then the prank is she's trans. And then they make fun of him for being gay and all this, and it's like, that in itself is very problematic, but that also can be applied to queer people about your actual attraction to someone. You don't necessarily know unless you know their identity. If you go by these definitions of, I'm attracted to males, I'm attracted to women, I'm attracted to these two genders. It's very limiting to say the least, when you just say you're attracted to a gender. Not that limiting's bad, I'm just saying on paper, it's a little bit limiting because what does that gender even mean? What does that gender even look like? There's 1,000 different ways to see it. Gender is an umbrella. Under all these umbrellas are more umbrellas. Rihanna would be thriving right now. Like, what actually defines a male in terms of society and their... Oh, hello! He's a male. Are you a male? I'll still say, like, yeah, I am male. I would never consider myself female personally. I just don't think that fits for me. But there's a lot of people who are like, no, you're not actually a dude because you wear makeup. You're not actually a dude because you look like this. So we all have these different opinions about what a male actually means, about what a gender actually means. Some people still think non-binary, you have to be androgynous. That's not true. To the people who are androgynous though, you're doing it. The ability to look androgynous, in my opinion, is just like, that's a talent in itself. It would be so much easier if when we were when we were looking up what gay meant, if we were able to hear all of this stuff about, don't worry so much about limiting yourself to a label. Gender itself and sexuality are all abstract, it's a spectrum. Wouldn't that be so much eye-opening as like a teenager when you're looking it up for the first time? Because let's face it, when you went on the internet to go look up what sexuality were, because we all did it at some point probably, at least most of us. To the people who never had to, I'm so happy you didn't have to go through that experience, because it's a confusing experience. You're just bombarded with a bunch of different, like thousands and hundreds of different labels and genders and sexualities that you don't even know what that means because you're what, 12 years old? 10 years old looking this stuff up? So how do you expect us to understand all of it at such a young age? We won't. In fact, there's some adults today who still don't understand it because there's never proper education about it. It's always like a case by case. Oh, I heard it from this person. Oh, I looked it up from this source. I heard it from this YouTuber. Why do y'all think representation matters so much? If gender studies and sexuality was taught more in classrooms, and before anyone says that's not appropriate, then don't make your child watch any movies of any people kissing. Don't watch any Disney movie, basically. I can't stand it when people try to argue that queerness is inherently more sexual and inappropriate. That's just aligning ourselves with just being like, you're basically calling us whores, to say the least. And that is rooted in the attitudes of how people treated us back then as well. It carried on here. You're just trying to word it differently. You're saying, but think about the children. Then don't kiss in front of your husband. Susan, you know what's actually traumatizing and inappropriate? Telling a 6-year-old they're gonna go to hell if they don't, preach to Jesus. I don't know so much about Christianity, but from what I get, I would not do that to my children if I ever had a child. I wouldn't bring them into any church where I know that male pastors have been known to groom children. I don't think any kid should know about hell or Satan or the idea of sin at such a young age. But I think what benefits them is how to understand their own personal attractions to people in life so that they don't grow up confused for the rest of their life, thinking they're the problem. Shows, books, any media that represents this, it doesn't make children become anything. It gives them the vocabulary to understand how they're feeling and how to navigate the world, because it's fucking crazy out there. I mean, look at me. I'm still trying to figure out my own identity. And it's not easy to just say, oh, don't care about your identity. That literally is what matters most to someone probably. That's just saying oh, don't care how you look or how you're perceived to anyone. Just live life. When you have more self-esteem or confidence, that's easier because you have your own self-worth established. But a child, most teenagers, most people in life, we don't have that. So don't try to push it off as something that's not important. Let me bring up some examples, personal things I've seen on my channel where I just saw the problem with this sexuality and labeling. I'm bringing it up again. Let's talk about this bi versus pan crime, because I need it to be dug down the grave. You got these people on one side, right? It means two genders, the other side. It doesn't mean two genders, it's just more than one. Mind you, both groups identify as bisexual. Then you got bi people versus pan people saying bisexuality is inherently transphobic, or I don't know the other word, but it excludes non-binary people, that's what I'm trying to say. And then the other side, no it doesn't, it never did, read the manifesto. Also, apparently there's some bi people who believe that pansexual people invalidate their identity. And let's start there. In what world does another person's sexuality, another person's life invalidate your sexuality? It's not like the definition was changed because of that one person. It's not like the whole discord started because they did not throw the first brick, okay? If I go about life and I'm like, hey, I'm gay, and there's other person, they say they're gay, but they're not someone who only likes the same gender, a bi lesbian, or because that's a thing. and people like to argue about it. If that exists, theoretically, if something like that existed within my own label, my own community, wouldn't it be better to try to understand the person instead of yelling and invalidating their sexuality? Because, and this is to a certain extent, because if there's anything that draws the line with just being illegal, ped, get out. I hate it when people use that argument. And if it doesn't involve humans, get out. You may personally believe that's not a true sexuality, but that same level of attitude is what people thought about like asexuals, aromanticism, sorry, it's late. It's a similar attitude to how conservative people thought back then. Like, they're similar, not the same, because this time it's in your own community. So I'd rather hear someone out first, because I don't think we have the right to invalidate another sexuality when all of it is just personal. It's all personal to themselves, to make themselves feel good. Me, okay, not you. I'm not defining myself as this to get attention. I don't think anyone would label themselves something just to receive negative attention. That's literally the argument we give to all these conservative parents. Like, why would I call myself gay when I know it already attracts negative attention? You think I wanted to live this life of hatred? You think I wanted to live this life where people could hate crime me for just existing? No. In any world, it's just easier to be cis hetero. Stop thinking it's a choice to those people. In my opinion, okay, these labels are just a way to further define their own attraction, because you could have different levels. Like, oh, I'm attracted to males, masculine people, sometimes feminine people in this scenario, non-binary people in this scenario, probably never females, but occasionally in this scenario. Like, imagine finding a sexuality that encompasses all of that. You'd have to make your own name. That's why we have so many sexualities, and when people say that, they're like, ugh, there's so many now. That's the attitude. You're not wrong, there are a lot, because sexuality is this big.
Big boobs.
I always try to bring up this example. It's a spectrum, so it's a gradient, it's a rainbow gradient. Trying to label that is hex coding it, is putting a dot on there and giving it its own identity. This is hashtag FDD700. That's my favorite color, by the way. We all see that's not feasibly possible, right? It may be possible, like, yeah, we could do it, but it would always be inconvenient, because then you got to think about the people who are going to be introduced to this gradient, and they're reading the bajillions of different hex codes, trying to find which one they are. So the next time you want to argue with someone because you don't think their sexuality is valid, think about it this way. They're probably trying to find a nuance in between the two sexualities that they think they are, or just they're trying to find something that best fits them, but it's hard to verbalize that. So it's easier to resort to labels. That is why labels exist in the first place too. It's like, it's a way to make things easier for us. You know, when you say gay, that's less words, first of all, and it's easier than saying, oh, I like males and I am a male, or I like the same gender that I identify with. You know, one is easier than the other to say. They're also easier to understand when they're in society and they're used commonly. I might even go as far as to say labels themselves is affirming heteronormative society. I don't want to say it, but like the white supremacy, because it first started off with gender roles. A woman does this, a man does this. White people are this, black people are this. It all started with that, and they use that to gain power and also to suppress others, specifically groups of people, cultures, ethnicities, the list continues. So while we do use these labels for our own community's sake, we're still applying roles and stereotypes to each label, which is what they did back then. And that might just be a human thing, that might just be a, we've always been like that, but the whole point of queerness is to combat that. We're already considered strange and weird to cis hetero society. So why try to abide with it? Why try to go along with it? We should do our own thing. If we all just said we were queer, this would all be easier, okay? But, and there's a big but.
Big boobs.
It's a big Nicki Minaj butt, y'all. Gay people can also be assholes.
Oh, Jesus. Gross.
Just because you're gay doesn't mean you're an asshole. Actually, assholes can be nice. Just because you're gay doesn't mean you can't be a biatch. Because even back then, you still had gay versus lesbian discourse. You had everyone versus trans discourse. You had this within like white versus Asian people, white versus black people, white versus brown. Like there was so much discourse, and there still is. So within this League Beauty community, we're ostracizing each other as well, which means we further ourselves from being a community and we go into our own subgroups. And these subgroups also go down their own subgroups, because you got the multi-sexuality spectrum, bi, poly, pan, and then pan and omni. None of that would have happened if we were able to communicate sexuality better and be able to be more understanding of each other. I always hear y'all say like, oh, I just identified with the bi community more, I just identified with the pan community more. Hello, you're back. I wish we could have gone about it so we didn't have to even separate these communities, because we're all under the same boat. It's all just we're all trying to exist. So why are we fighting with each other when the other side is still taking away our rights right now? Remy? No. Remy? I am so sorry. I'm not doing the makeup that I should be doing. I said I would. I'm a liar. I want to take a break for a second. I hope y'all are okay? I hope y'all are understanding where I'm coming from. I don't do this to offend people. I just want to be able to understand everyone more and help us understand each other more. I'd rather build that community up again, because lately it's felt like we don't feel like a community, especially online, because online you can be anonymous and you can be as much of an asshole as you want to be. And also misinformation online just spreads like wildfire. And when that is accessible to everyone, including the people who just got a phone, who are just like 6 years old, just came out of the womb, not the best thing when they're reading stuff about sexuality that is, in my opinion, untrue or inaccurate. That's how this whole cycle continues. It's always just misinformation, not being educated about it, and then spreading that misinformation. And again, I want to bring this up one more time. Why does someone else's sexuality matter to you? Why does someone else's preferences matter to you? And this goes another way. Why does your sexuality matter to them? Your preference matter to them? Because when I made that multi-sexuality video, someone was like, don't forget about omni. I didn't mention them. But the thing is, like I've already said, bi, it just means more than one. Poly, some people still think that means polyamory. No, it can also mean polysexual. That in itself creates confusion within that own label. I don't want to keep talking about this. I wish I said in the first video, but back to the multi-sexuality spectrum. I want to examine each label itself to its actual name. So bisexual. More people are starting to understand it's just more than one gender, because who am I to say I'm only attracted to male and females when non-binary people are hot? Okay, they're hot. There's so many ways to express your gender. I think limiting it's just you haven't been exposed to someone that you could be attracted to who is non-binary. Theoretically, I could be attracted to anyone because a lot of people can be hot and a lot of us are horny. So who am I to say it's just two for the rest of my life? You know, that's why it's always okay to evolve, and it's always okay to change how you identify, because you live and you learn. So in terms of bi, you know, bi means two. Like let's not try to act like that doesn't exist in the world. Bi does mean two in most other scenarios. So it's a little inconvenient. Actually, it's a lot inconvenient when you say bisexual if you don't mean two, because barely anyone knows why it was called bisexual in the first place. There's a lot of different ways it's been defined, but like back in 1892 it says. The first use of the word bisexual with the meaning of sexual attraction to both men and women dates back to the 19th century. Some psychologists, Richard von Krafft-Ebing, whatever, used it to refer to the gender of individuals whom he believed exhibited both feminine and masculine behaviors. Prior to that, it usually meant having both female and male parts. But from 1970s onward, it became more prevalent in Western society. The point is, the origin of bisexuality, it wasn't just solely just male-female. It was sort of like a in-between. It was on a Kinsey scale, which in itself is a little controversial, but either way, it was like this in-between. Bi meaning like between the two. That's how they used it, between the two. Looking back, I think we can all agree, maybe it wasn't the best choice to use the word bi. It kind of became associated with two genders, and that's why most people still believe it's that, because that's what Wikipedia said for a long time. That's what most sources, when you look it up for a long time, said. Wait, whoa, what did I just say? I'm getting tired. How are you gonna yell at someone on Twitter for thinking that bisexual means two when they're 10 years old? Why are you fighting with them? It's one thing to yell at someone already. The first step is to not yell and not be aggressive at someone. That's like the first thing you learn in debate club, how to effectively debate someone and change their opinion. You have to think on their side. You have to literally put yourself in their shoes, think from their perspective. If you're yelling at them, here's a bad analogy. You arguing to someone online about sexuality, in general, it's probably just you taking a hammer to a wall. And when you're being aggressive, you're just doing this, you're hammering at this wall, and you don't know when it's gonna end. So instead of doing that, why not take a step back, calm down, and see if you can go around that wall. See if there's another solution to doing that, because there's many solutions to going about getting around this wall. But what's not gonna get you there is yelling down their throats, because they're probably a child just learning about sexuality. And you're a legal adult talking for hours on Twitter to this child who has like probably an anime picture in their profile. What are you doing? Use your time more wisely. I want to do a dedicated video about this, but some of this activism y'all are calling is not actually activism. Like, think about activism during the beginning of queer activism. Think about how Pride Month started, you know, Stonewall, always marching, always protesting, getting arrested, going to jail, probably being killed, but trying to be with your community at the heart of it, at the center, and letting your voice be heard. Activism today, honestly, I know Gen Z is still very out loud with their opinions, and I'm very happy to see that, especially with what's been happening. But some of y'all on TikTok, and I don't think it's just some, I think it's a good percentage, some of y'all think like dancing to a K-pop song with a caption about something that's like progressive is activism. And like, y'all really think you did that by doing some dance and the captions like don't hate gay people or something. Similar thing, some of y'all think that arguing on Twitter and trying to change someone's mind is doing the most of activism. But then you look the other way after you learn about the hundreds of anti-LGBT beauty rights that have been introduced this year, not passed, introduced. There's a difference. I had other queer people be like, really? That happened? Yeah. There's around the same amount of anti-league beauty laws introduced this year as there are... Sorry, I had to bleep that out. I'd rather keep this video monetized. It's very grim to say, but that's how it is. And while your definition of activism, while you think you're doing the best thing that you can do as a human being by just thriving online in your own community and yelling at people instead of talking about these laws that are affecting other states, maybe even yours, other people are losing their ability to have gender-affirming healthcare. They're losing their insurance. They are losing their hormone pills. Your people, our people, we should even go as far to say, because it's our community. Now, if you want to say, don't worry, I talk about it. Who are you, Frederic, to say, I've never talked about this. I know about it. Okay. Fair. But do you do that as often as you are arguing about minuscule things and continuing your performative activism? I would hope not. You know, if you want to argue with someone for an hour on Twitter, go off. Do what you must. But I would hope that you also use at least 1 hour, because it should be at least 1 hour if you're gonna argue for an hour, into spreading information about people's basic rights being taken away, because that's happening every day. That's potentially happening every day because they're all being introduced. And maybe we would understand this more if the US education was a little bit better, talking about how the government works, how representatives work, how we should emphasize state governments and our own counties. You know, start small, start off in your own community, because that trickles down. Not trickles, I guess it goes outwards. But a lot of people just think like, oh, why doesn't the president just do something? It's not just easy as that. It's your own community as well. Even like your own church, your own school. We could all be making change there. Sorry, I just realized I got very off track. I'm gonna wind that back. Let's move on to polysexual. Some people still thought I meant polyamorous in that video. That just goes to show that labels are already confusing, even at its core. Just the word poly itself, it has duplicate meanings. One is polyamorous, one is polysexual. So it will garner confusion. Lastly, you got pan. Some people say it's all genders. Some people say it's all genders with no preference. And that's when Omni was birthed, because you had people within the pansexual community who was like, it's all genders, no preference. And they're like, well, what if I do have a preference? Now I feel like I need to make my own community because I feel like I'm not actually pan now because I do have preferences. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of just thinking that like you don't belong in a community based on the definitions you hear or based on what you see. And this is not dismissing either sexuality. I know that pansexual and omnisexual are valid, but my point is, why do we have to specify with preferences without preferences? Because in what world does it matter to someone else? You know, like when you're telling me you're omnisexual, I'll just be like, cool, you can be attracted to any gender. But why would I think about which one is the preference? Is that any of my business? No, it's all your business. You don't need to tell me. You don't owe me that. You don't even owe your partner that, in my opinion. It just all goes back to that feeling of building a community, wanting to be included, because we're humans, we want to be in social settings, to feel like we have a bond to other people. Theoretically, if we were to specify preferences, we could even see like within Omni there's, oh, with preferences to people with masculine traits, with preferences to people with feminine traits, with preferences to both. It can just keep going and going, and it just goes back to that freaking rainbow gradient. I can even do that for like bisexual. It's like, oh, I'm attracted to people who identify as male and non-binary, but within bisexual, I'm gonna make a new sexuality called blank, and that means I'm attracted to males and non-binaries, but with a preference to males. It's just a little redundant at that point. And we wouldn't feel this need to create divisions if... Is that the word? No, I'm being stupid. It's not math. We wouldn't feel this need to deviate from the umbrella term if that community already was accepting. But we're not, so that's why it happened. In conclusion, humans suck, including queer people. We all just suck. I'm just getting a little bit tired of talking about it because like I'm very passionate about this stuff. I just want people to not feel so pressured about this stuff because I don't like hearing people saying, how should I label myself? Don't ask me, who am I to tell you, you know? Like, I'm not the Lorax of the gays, y'all. But I know those people are probably young, so of course I'm not gonna yell at them and be like, why the fuck are you asking me? You're an idiot. No, I would rather say like, don't ask me personally because it's your own journey. No one online should define who you are as a person, who you go to bed with, who you're attracted to, because that is always your business. And it is okay for that to change. It is okay for you to not switch. I don't want to call it switch, but like for you to adapt once you understand more, because we're always learning more about sexuality. It's complicated. I'm not here trying to tell you I understand it to a T. I've seen the light. I saw gay Jesus himself. He is speaking to me, and therefore I am regurgitating his words. No, I'm just giving you my own thoughts on it, and hopefully it gives you another perspective, and hopefully I attract people who have similar perspectives to me. Because if I can make one person feel less confused about their sexuality, especially when they're younger and just understanding puberty and what's going on around here and down there and everywhere else, I'd rather relieve some of that stress. You shouldn't have to go through that. You did not see that. You did not see me do that. Finally, I want to talk about immature people who demonize the word straight. Queer people can be straight as well. Y'all kind of forget that trans people can be straight for some reason. And I know it's not a majority of people who do this, who like try to do this. Ugh, I hate these straggots, which is like trying to take back the F word in a different way. I understand where people come from. I just personally wouldn't want to put that word out into the world. I just don't think we need to add another word like that, personally. But I've seen people literally say, ugh, can y'all keep the word partner to the gays? I don't want to see straight people calling their boyfriend partner. I'm sorry, could you go into the dictionary and go to the section L? Because you need to find a life. Like, what? Who are you to say that? How dumb, okay? How literally stupid. I don't usually call people stupid, but like, in that case, you're just dumb. It's not ignorant, you're just immature. You're the person who just says like, I'm gay, you can't offend me, or I'm gay, I'm allowed to say this. Shut up. Once again, gay people can have just as assholey behavior as these other people. Wouldn't it be easier to live in a world where all of us can just say partner? Why does your partner's gender matter, you know? Why do I need to say boyfriend to clarify it's a boy? Doesn't matter to you. It's none of your business, it's mine. Isn't that a good thing for allies to recognize that gender is complex and that being inclusive is better? It helps you understand like, hey, I see you. I'm not going to be that person who limits your own gender because you don't know what your own partner is going through. They might not want to be called girlfriend one day or boyfriend. Are you telling me that straight people should only say ladies and gentlemen and boys and girls? Like, what do you want then? Or are you just a insecure single gay male who has nothing better to do than comment on straight couples TikToks because you're lonely? Just admit that. If you want to talk about the group that is the norm, the one who've had dominant roles in society, who have influence, it is cis hetero men, okay? Don't just say straight out there. Some people are trying to turn straight into a derogatory term. I'd rather not use that. I know sometimes within our own group chats, it's meant to be a joke, and that's fine, but when you put it out onto the internet, be careful, okay? I look so stupid. Take it from someone who's been on YouTube. Your words matter on the internet because anyone can see that. Anyone can misconstrue your words. I don't want to see someone who is straight, who just is trying to be an ally, feel like they can't even be accepted as a straight person and be an ally because we're demonizing them. No, I have lots of straight friends who I would still want them to feel comfortable around me and not be like, ugh, I feel bad. I don't want to say anything because I feel like I'm gonna offend you because apparently I as a straight person offend a lot of people online to gay people. It's like, no, none of this will happen if you diversify your timeline, your TikToks, your For You page, and don't just go down this bubble and have a hive mind. Do y'all see I'm matching the makeup? It's so beautiful. I got one more example for you before I'm cut out, just from speaking of personal experience. Asexuality and aromanticism. If you don't know what that is, look it up. You have to be proactive in learning. I've always been pro Google, not just because I've done an ad for them, but also because it's good to get into a mindset of learning for yourself. And it's one thing to like go to a video to educate yourself, but it's another thing to just be too lazy to look up the definition of a word because you don't feel like looking it up. I know Zoom and the pandemic ruined our ability to learn. I'm not blaming you for that, but try, okay? Because it's important to want to learn. That is how you mature in life. But I feel like whenever you talk to an aro ace person or just talk about the spectrum in general, it perfectly defines what I'm already talking about. Labels are reductive. They're easier to say, but trying to define everything is difficult because it requires explaining. Because how many times have we seen or heard from an aro ace person, I'm asexual and it doesn't mean just this, it actually means this for me. Or I just hear stories of saying, ugh, I always feel like I have to explain what asexual means because no one freaking understands, or they just think it means you hate sex. All this misinformation. So they go out of their way to say, I'm asexual, which also means blah, and that's amazing, you know? Thank you for telling us. But that in itself proves how difficult labels still are today. It's not just enough to say ace or asexual. You gotta go the extra mile to explain, or else they'll be misinformed for the rest of their life and they'll think you hate sex, you hate love, or something like that. Something stupid and ignorant. Like, I myself had to learn from experience because Googling isn't just enough all the time, because you can even Google down certain routes that are just like biased. And even on the aro ace spectrum, there are so many ways of expressing that. Like, it's not just one or the other. It's not just I can never love someone or I'm never into sex. Like, there's levels to it because it's a spectrum. So even on this rainbow gradient, let's say aro ace people are, we're gonna say pink.
And shattered pink diamond.
I hope pink has not been historically used against aro ace people, but let's just say pink, okay? That is the asexual spectrum within the rainbow gradient, which is the queer spectrum. Even in pink, you got, what, salmon, mauve, rose, rose quartz, dusty pink, rosy pink.
That's more of a pinkish red than a real rose quartz reddish pink.
Gray pink, like, so many different ways. One label is never gonna be enough. One label will never perfectly define all the different shades of pink. Just like gay people, we're red. Not all of us are gonna be able to talk about the colors of red. Lesbian, blue. There's a million different ways of blue. We're all just under this rainbow gradient. So let's stop trying to just say, we're this color, you can't sit with us. No. We're all meshing together, we're all surrounded by each other, and we're more similar than we think we are, because we're all just not cis hetero society. We are all other. Not in a bad way, I just mean we are queer. It's different, it is weird, and weird as in we are unique, so we should just stick together, because as long as we're still fighting with each other in this community, online, on Twitter, in person, Discord, whatever, the other side is winning. They're the ones taking away the rights. They're the ones who have the power, because we're preoccupied with identity politics. Not that identity politics aren't valid, but in my opinion, it's a less pressing issue than basic human rights, because I'm talking about identity politics within the own community. It's another bad analogy, like you're in math, you got this answer to this problem. Another person got the same answer, but they went about it differently. They got there differently. They used a different equation. And y'all are arguing about how to get the correct answer when you both got the correct answer. Meanwhile, you have this other person who didn't go about it correctly, didn't get the right answer. Why are y'all fighting with each other? You're both correct. Stop it. Or maybe understand that there's different ways to get a correct answer, just like there are different ways to be a blank, to be a label, to be a sexuality. I need a break again. I'm gonna do my eyebrows. I need to reiterate this. We tend to forget that we are all on different levels of education. I don't mean that as in like basic human education. I mean like levels of understanding how sexuality works. Some of us are just looking up the word bi. We're just understanding all of LGBT, League Beauty, okay? Some of us more further along. We've lived longer, we've experienced more, we've talked to more queer people because we live in a more democratic city, you know? But this person who lives in let's go with Oklahoma this time. They live in a small town, their parents are conservative, they're a single child, they go to church, they have no queer friends. How do we expect this person to understand as much about sexuality as us when literally everything in their environment is trying to prevent them from understanding it? I also think it's the people who grow up literally having nothing in terms of like queerness, representation, all this stuff, who are more open about it, who understand it more. Because the people who grow up, let's just say like more privileged, and not as in like never was bullied about being gay or always had accepting parents. I'm talking about the people who just like went on TikTok and just instantly went down their own community and stayed there, and further went down the memes and the TikToks and just only cared about like the hot people on TikTok. Those are the people who have that inner belief of like not trying to expand their knowledge of queerness. They think they know it all at age 12. And that's not age shaming, because I'm gonna call out, there's some 60-year-olds who still have a closed mind. I mean, we know that. But just because you are young doesn't mean you're better than the old people. We can learn a lot from them. It is because of older people that I understood, hey, back then, it wasn't all about what we talk about today, what I'm talking about right now. We didn't even get to talk about that. We had to talk about the basic things first. We were trying to survive because a lot of us died. It was not easy to be gay. It's easier now. So therefore, more gay people take advantage of it, and they care less about politics. They care less about trying to fight for rights because they're able to just, you know, live. Usually it's white gay men who are able to live. They go to parties, they go to pride parades, and they call it a day. And maybe every now and then they'll tweet, oh my god, so sorry about abortion rights being taken away. But then they go on about their day. These people, you know, the ones who don't have their abortion rights taken away, they don't have to deal with bullying in high school, they don't have to deal with their hormone pills taken away, or the fact that they literally can't get surgery anymore because their state outlawed it. Those are the people, what'd I say? I already forgot what I said about people. Those are the people who don't bother to understand all of this because they're not affected by it. They're able to use, let's be honest, their white privilege as a way to go about society, because just because you're gay doesn't mean you can't be privileged. Whiteness comes first because we see your skin color first before your sexuality, because even then you don't have to look gay. There is no looking gay, looking queer thing, okay? Stop that idea. Because y'all also gotta stop labeling people online just gay whenever you want. Oh, your boyfriend might be a little, I saw him wearing roll-up jeans. Like, why are you dictating someone's sexuality? You're just as bad as the other people who bullied you in high school and called you gay. You're no better. So stop doing that online just because you're gay and you think you can do it because I got a gaydar. Keep that to yourself. That's not me sucking up to cis hetero people. That's me trying to be a decent human being and understand that, hey, I don't know what they're going through. I don't want to just label them like that. This is the same thing of y'all just calling Shawn Mendes gay, okay? It's the same thing. Y'all are freaking weird. Because even if he is, he's not gonna date you. All right, break time. I need to do my eyebrows. Did I say I was linking everything? I'm linking everything in the description for y'all. This one is so affordable and it's so good. And also, I've been trying to grow out my brows more, and I feel like they're really getting better. Just you wait, okay? Just you wait until you see how thick I can make these brows. Also, let me know what you want me to discuss next. I do want to do the problem with pride flags because it's basically a similar topic, but I'm not sure how else I can go about this series because I did a poll and I did something, I forgot what it was specifically asking, but like I was gonna talk about how there's so many misconceptions of transness, and some people were like, I don't want to see someone who's not trans talk about it, and I completely understand. It wasn't my goal to speak for that community, it was just trying to like help educate my own community because not all of us are as educated as we should be, but it's also my responsibility to be like, hey, follow this person who is trans, who has already talked about it, the information is already out there, be proactive and look for it. But I will admit, okay, y'all, like, hear me out. There is something inside of me that's like, I feel bad if I don't talk about it because there's some people who are saying, why haven't you talked about it? And I'm like, I don't want to overstep because either way, if I don't talk about something, it'll offend people, but if I do, it could also offend. So I'm trying to find this middle ground of like, I don't know when. I don't know how the week happens, but like when there is Trans Awareness Week, even if it's not during the week, who cares? I want to do a video interviewing y'all, people who are trans, and just asking questions. And the questions will come from people who aren't trans, who want to learn more from the source. How does that sound? Is that okay? And like, I'm just the buffer. I'm just like the one interviewing at this point, not the one speaking for them. Because we should hear trans voices. That's the whole point. Let me know what y'all think about that, if that's like the best option for you. And also what other videos I should discuss, because I'm ready to keep offending groups. Actually, no. You know I say that jokingly, right? Like, I know I'm not offending everyone by saying this. The point of putting the problem with is clickbait to get people to click in hopes of learning more about something they wouldn't have clicked on if I just said, let's talk about sexuality and labels. Do you know what I mean? I'm not someone trying to be like edgy with my beliefs and say like, ugh, I'm actually trying to be more conservative as a gay person because I feel like we've gone too far. Not that, I'm never gonna be that person, but I'm hoping to pull in that audience so that they can have the tables turned on them. They're like, oh shit, I did not expect this video. When y'all tell me you came into the video expecting to be offended, that was my goal. Because I wanted people to have a different perspective, because they probably wouldn't have clicked and learned this stuff if the title wasn't as intriguing. So now that my brows are glued down, you wanna know the trick? Buy nail art brushes, or I mean these ones, I'll link them because I got a discount. They're technically eyeliner brushes, but they also make for great eyebrow hairs, because we all know that like these ones, they're good if on the go, but they're not as thin. I'm looking for the thinnest paintbrush on earth. I'm looking for 2 hairs on it because it's supposed to resemble hairs. So of course I would only want it to be the thickness of a hair then, right? Logically, like if you want to draw hair, you probably want to use a brush that is just hair and has the same thickness of hair. Another tangent, how do y'all like the room? You don't want to know how much this chair was. I'm sure if you look it up, you'll shock yourself. I'll let you do that on your own, do your own research because I don't want to talk about it. I'll do a house tour eventually, or an apartment tour, I mean. And yeah, like I've been collecting a bunch of plants, as you can tell. I've always been a plant mom, but never really talked about it. But I think I have over 50 plants. So once I reach 100, I'll do the 100 plant tour. So these are how I do my brows now. It looks so natural to me. It looks like real brow hairs when you get up close. You know what I mean? Sorry, I'm getting oily. God, I'm getting so oily. Hold on. It's because I'm filming in a room that has no AC. And currently I think we're like 80 degrees in here, 85 almost, which may not seem a lot, but when you got 2 lights in front of you, like a ring light, it gets hot, y'all. And last tangent, I finally found my Tati Beauty sponge. I had it lost for literally 6 months, and it was the best fucking sponge I've ever used in life. It made my skin look like skin, and I was so sad when I lost it, but I'm just happy I found it again, because we were best friends. I love this so much. I don't know if y'all care. I have another question though, that if you can answer, please. I've been changing how I edit my videos, like the color grading. You know, usually it's a little more like contrasty, but now this is the default because I'm doing it so you can see every shadow, because before you couldn't really see my hair. It kind of just all looked black and like a black blob, but I'd rather you see it. Let me know what y'all think. Do you like this or how they looked before? Why, you know, etc. Mind you, I'm still setting up everything, so like they will look better eventually, but since I've moved, it's been a little hard getting the good lighting because I'm cramped in here. There's still boxes around me. It's all fake. All of this is fake. It doesn't look this good actually. Okay, normally I would do foundation at this point, but like I don't think my skin looks really good. And I don't think I need foundation this time. Actually, that's a fucking lie. Everyone could use some foundation. We could always use some more. Like, see what I mean? It just looks like skin. Like, hello? But back to the subject at hand. Like, I don't have any notes with me this time because, once again, I said I'd rather do this video just talking to you like a regular human being and not just reading off a script. These are my honest, unfiltered thoughts. I'm gonna say it one more time because I don't know if I said it, but I don't have a problem with labels. I don't have a problem with all of these different labels. Some of them may not be the best words because I'm like, I don't think your sexuality is invalid. I think the naming of it is a little questionable. And yes, it might be stupid at some points because I also consider bisexual a little bit inconvenient, to say the least, because of the bi in front of there. Because it's like, yeah, it will confuse some people. But the whole point of why there's so many labels is to accommodate the fact that sexuality is so complex and there's so many variations of it. So these are just the variations getting labeled. And as we find out there's more variations, we tend to label because humans just like labeling things. And once again, labeling is still trying to abide by this cis heteronormative society because queerness is all about not doing labels, not being in a box, trying to stop all of it because we don't want to be in a box, you know? We didn't create the closet, y'all did. And y'all as in society. I didn't put myself in that closet. It was because of the gender roles. It was because of how our society works in a cis hetero way that it was made. It was turned into this other. If the society never excluded us and was always accepting, we wouldn't have to care about the closet. We wouldn't be in the situation we are. I wouldn't be making this video right now. But life's not fair, is it, Naomi Smalls?
Manila.
this one's sexy. This one's this itself. Y'all ready to see me blend this out in like 2 seconds? Hello? And it's so seamless. Oh, it's so beautiful. Like when I tell you my hands just understand how to do makeup when I'm with the sponge. We're in a relationship, I hope you know. Oh, do not. I need to remember to not do that. Oh my god, this nose. Alright, I think I'm done talking about it. I am exhausted from talking about it. In conclusion, we should all stick more together. That's not a phrase. We should stop trying to fight with each other because that is what society wants. They want us to break down our own people to the point where we don't even have a community. They are afraid of us because they know when we group together, we have power. Don't forget that. And I'm pretty. This needs a Tower 28 gloss. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh yeah, another thing, I love it when I do this and my eyebrows just go. I wish they could just look like that the whole time. We're getting there. Naturally, I look mad, which is also a good look. I hope y'all enjoy this video. Once again, I'm not gonna only do commentary. This has been on my mind all week, and I just need to let it out. And I hope y'all have these similar feelings. Let me know what you thought. Once again, this is totally an open conversation. I'm not gonna block you if you have something to say. I wanna know your opinions, okay? Let's have an open conversation. We can all learn from each other in the comments down below. Sorry, I'm trying to move all of this stuff behind me. The big point though is be respectful of each other. Because even on that bisexual video, I had people still trying to dictate what your sexuality is. You don't know them. Stop it, okay? Stop it. And educate yourself. Love yourself. As always, follow me on social media. I've been streaming more on Twitch. We're almost at 100K on Instagram. And my Twitter does exist. TikTok is a thing too. Subscribe! Why haven't you? You know? And as always, I love you all, and everything is less than 3. I'm gonna go get ready now. These are gym shorts I have on, by the way. The only reason I have on shorts is because this angle shows my down there. Otherwise, I would be in my boxers. Oh, I didn't show y'all. My glasses. Wait, my glasses. Where are my glasses? Final look.